running into a lot of difficult games to talk about this week. Today we're looking at Ys, the first game developed by Advanced Communication Company and published by Victor Interactive Software. It was released in Japan in 1988. Also known as Ancient Ys Vanished, or The Vanished Omens, or The Ancient Land of Ys. This is the first installment, and really kind of set the bar for the rest of the series. It was developed by Falcom in 1987, and the name is commonly misspelled Y''S due to an error on the packaging of an English language release. While this game, the NES version, did not get an English language release, there were a few for other systems, like the Master System had an English version release. Initially developed by the PC 8801 by Masaya Hashimoto, who is the director, programmer, and designer, and Tomoyoshi Miyazaki, the scenario writer, the game was soon ported to the X1, PC 9801, the FM7/FM77, and the FM77AV, and the MSX2. I don't know what these FM things are. You look them up. Ancient Ys Vanished saw many subsequent releases, such as an English language version for the Master System, MS-DOS, the the 2GS? Oh, it must be the Apple II. Okay. TurboGrafx 16 and enhanced remakes for the Saturn and Windows. The game was also released as part of a compilation, Ys 1 and 2 for the TurboGrafx CD in 1989, along with its 1988 sequel, Ys 2. It has also been released for the NDS. Ys was the precursor to RPGs that emphasize storytelling. The hero of Ys is an adventurous young swordsman named Adol Christian, and the story begins as he has just arrived at the town of Minea, in the land of Asteria. He is called upon by Sarah, a fortune teller, who tells him of great evil that is sweeping the land. Adol is informed he must seek out the 6 books of Ys. Now, these books contain the history of the ancient land of Ys and will give him the knowledge he needs to defeat the evil forces. Sir gives Adol a crystal for identification and instructs him to find her aunt in a Zepek village, who holds the key to retrieving one of the books. With that, his quest begins, which I could not get to happen in my little wandering around, because every time I went and purchased the things I needed that I thought the fortune teller wanted me, she just said, "Oh, you're not ready yet." Anyway. We control Adol in a game field viewed from a top-down perspective. Link is Zelda. As he travels on a main field and explores dungeons, he will encounter numerous roaming enemies, which he must battle in order to progress. Combat in Ys is rather different from RPGs at the time, which either had a turn-based system or manually activate a sword. Ys instead features a battle system where Adol automatically attacks when walking into enemies off-center. When the protagonist moves toward his enemies, damage is sustained on both sides. Attacking straight on causes the attacker to most damage himself, but clipping the edge of the defender yields a successful differential. The combat system with accessibility in mind. This bump attack system has become one of the series' defining features. Falcom staff have compared this style of gameplay to the enjoyment of popping air bubble sheets, in the sense that it took the tedious task of level grinding and turned it into something similar to a high-score-based arcade game. According to Games and John Cezapanik of Retro Gamer and The Escapist, I'm probably saying that wrong. There's a lot of consonants in a row in that name. Repetition of the act was pleasurable as you developed a psychological rhythm, and even in the event of backtracking, progress was always swift since the players never needed to stop moving. Another feature that had been used in nearly every Ys title since the original is recharging health mechanic, which had previously been used in Dragon Slayer, to which Ys is the official successor of the clone Hydlide series, although Hydlide itself borrowed said feature from the 1980 game Rogue in the first place. Recharging health has since become a common mechanic used in many video games today. Aside from graphical differences, game layout remains essentially the same across the many ports of Ys. However, there are some versions where details were changed. The Master System version, for example, saw some of the game's dungeon areas flipped horizontally, including some other minor differences. Why? Who knows? The most distinctive of the early ports was the Famicom edition, which was published by Victor Musical Industries. This version was a vast departure from the original, featuring entirely new layouts of the towns, fields, and dungeons, and replaced a number of the original music tracks and a new final battle sequence. The version developed for the MSX contained a handful of new musical tracks, which replaced part of the game's original soundtrack. Some of these tracks, along with a number of unused tracks first composed for the original, were later incorporated into the soundtrack of Ys Eternal and Ys Complete. The versions developed for the PC Engine CD-ROM, released as Ys 1 and 2 in 1989, and Sega Saturn included additional cutscenes, such as an opening detailing Adol's arrival at the town of Manea. The Windows-based remakes, East Eternal and East Complete, expand further on this and many of the other story elements through both cutscenes and additional gameplay. The Sharp X68000 enhanced remake, released in '91, was notable for its early use of 3D pre-rendering for the boss sprites. However, this ended up creating what was considered a bizarre contrast with the game's mostly 2D graphics. What can I tell you? Not much else. The game gets compared a lot to Zelda. The Master System version was reviewed in March 1989 in Computer and Video Games. The magazine gave the game a score of 92, stating that it's some of the best graphics on the system, and it offers depth and playability that would keep you engrossed for weeks. The Games Machine compared the game to Zelda, stating that in many respects the character detail and all-around presentation make it a better game visually, and concludes that Ys is one of the top-ranked RPGs around, giving it a score of 90%. The game was later reviewed in '91 in issue 172 of Dragon by Hartley, Patricia, and Kirk Lesser in the Role of Computers columns, and the reviewers gave the game a 5 out of 5. I gotta say, this was kind of fun to play for this little bit. Picking up the second game first was a bit weird, even though playstyle is completely identical. This one felt a little easier to just get into and go. So, we might see a Let's Play of this someday. I do have, I think the ability I could emulate maybe the Saturn version. That one interests me for some reason. If not, expect a TurboGrafx version.